Okay, we're ready when you are, Councillor Davis.
Thank you very much. Good morning to everyone, including members of the public that are either watching this live or watching it on catch-up later.
Okay, ready when you are, Councillor Davis.
Firstly, good morning to. You'll notice that Councillor Mansfield, that normally chairs this, is not here. That's because he recently retired from Surrey Heath Borough Council, and I'm sure this committee would like to thank him. I certainly would do, for the last 2 years that he's chaired this this committee. I'm sure he's avidly watching this, actually, expecting that. So anyway, and I'd also like to welcome Councillor Perry, who has jumped in place of. Right. Okay, so we move straight on to apologies for absence. I believe there's been no apologies for absence. Thank you. And item number 2 is minutes of the last meeting. I'm sure everyone's read them. Are they happy to resolve that they are a true and accurate record of the meeting? I'm looking for any nods. Yeah, thank you. Nobody's got any comments? Good, thank you very much. Item number 3, declarations of interest. Have there been any declarations, or are there? No, right, thank you. Okay, in that case then, we'll move straight on to the first substantive item on the agenda, which is the budget monitoring report for Q3. This will be introduced by Marco. Marco, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I don't really have anything to add to the report, so I'll just quickly highlight a few of the key numbers from Annex 1. So as you may have noticed, the overall picture hasn't changed very much since Q2. And those parts of the budget that have seen change, such as the CMO and the variable, the underspends have increased. So starting with the CMO budget, the total projected spend for the year has reduced and is now a little over 2,175,000. which has increased the underspend projection by 100,000 to 313,000. This would equate to a £50,000 budget saving for each partner. Moving on to the variable budget, the total projected spend for the year has also come down and is now a little over 1.9 million, which has increased the underspend projection by 37,000 to 610,000. This figure is broken down on page 2 of the report, where you will see that once again the underspend on garden waste dominates, making up 85% of the underspend total. The projected spend on the core budget hasn't changed at all this year, at a little over 12 million. Well, that was all I wanted to cover, but happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from committee members? It's a relatively straightforward report. No? Okay, well, in that case, I think we're asking to just note this report. So is this report noted? Yes. Yeah, right. Thank you very much. Agenda item 5, which is the quarterly performance update. This report is to be introduced by Kingsley. Kingsley, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and morning, everyone. So for the performance report, just going to go through the Surrey-wide performance first. Tonnages still remain higher than pre-pandemic levels, but there has been a decrease of 2.4% across all waste streams. To give a little bit more detail, DMR and food waste did decrease 1.7% and 0.6% respectively. Residual went up by 0.2%, and then garden waste went down by 5.2%, and that is largely due to the service suspension. So if we go into the joint contract, Elmbridge, DMR was unchanged. Food waste decreased by around 2.2%, residual decreased by 1.2%, and garden waste was down by 26.8%. And once again, that is due to the garden service suspension. The quarterly recycling rate for Elmbridge was estimated at 48.2%, and their rolling rate, which is up to December 21, was 52.3%. Mole Valley, DMR and food were down by 0.9 and 2.8% respectively. Residual also went down by 1.8%, and garden waste was down by 23.6%. Service suspension is the reason for that. Their quarterly recycling rate was 51.8%, and their rolling rate was 54.5%. Surrey Heath, DMR tonnages were down by 5.6%, so this is a significant decrease compared to the Surrey average. Currently, we're unsure why that is, but us performance and ops team will be looking into this, and we'll be looking at the material types and see what factors has affected Surrey Heath compared to the other authorities, or not affecting the other authorities. Food has gone down by 0.4%, garden down by 24.3%, and residual went up by 3.1%. Their quarterly rate was 57.9, but their rolling rate was 59.2. For Woking, their DMR and food both decreased by 0.5%, and garden waste was down by 26.5%, and their residual had little or no change. Their quarterly recycling rate was estimated at 51.2, and their rolling rate was at 52.4%. That is the performance report for Q3, and open to any questions now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kingsley. Do any members of the committee have any comments they'd like to raise? Councillor Salmon. Thank you.
Yeah, I was just looking at the problem in, I don't know, it's not really a problem in Surrey Heath, the way it's gone down, that you don't know why it's gone down, but they are still hitting a good recycling rate, which is higher than anywhere else. So is there any reason that is why they're still higher than everybody else, and yet the DMR has gone down? It is the question. I know you're saying you don't particularly know, but I just wondered. And the other item is in respect to fly tipping at the top of page 14. There's no clear pattern to fly tipping tonnages, with 2 of the 4 authorities seeing a decrease in tonnages. Which 2 of the 4 have seen decrease? And is there a change in fly tipping? Because we in the rural areas seem to be getting an awful lot more in particular places. So I just wondered if there is any sort of update on the fly tipping you could give me.
Thank you, Councillor. So regarding Surrey Heath, yes, we don't know why that has reduced. We are looking into that. It does seem unusual. I think we're probably just going to monitor that and see what the pattern is. In regard to why they are the highest performing recycling rate, Surrey Heath have historically always been that. They have always achieved the highest rate in the county. So I assume even though their tonnage went down, they're always at the top of the league table, if there was a league table. Regarding fly tipping, I'm just going to quickly look into that data and see what was those, which ones were the lowest. I don't have it at hand. But let me have a quick review of that, and I will.
If I might, while Kingsley's just looking at the fly tipping numbers to confirm which have gone in which direction, I think Surrey Heath have performed well as an authority for recycling for a couple of reasons. They have a slightly different mix of materials that they collect, which allows for a greater range of items to be put into their recycling bin, and also have a smaller standard size of refuse bin, which obviously encourages people to reduce the amount of refuse that they're putting out. So those are 2 things that have, probably contribute to where Surrey Heath are in terms of performance.
I suspect it's the range that's of what goes in that makes it higher.
Thank you for that. Kingsley, any further to add on that?
Yeah, sorry, just checking. So Surrey Heath and Woking saw the reduction in fly tipping. Thank you, Councillor. But there is no change in why fly tipping has, it's a very sporadic and kind of hard to pin down material type. It's not a material type, but waste.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We're zooming through this pretty quick. Has anyone got any questions? Any further questions? Any comments? Any points they'd like to make? Otherwise, we're just receiving that report. No, thank you. We'll move on to the next agenda item. Agenda item number 6, which is a joint contract work programme 21-22. So we're receiving a report on the update of progress, and I think this is introduced by Pat. Pat, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, everyone. Yes, this item is the regular quarterly report that captures the work that the Joint Waste Solutions team have been doing on your behalf and provides progress updates on projects. I'm going to start by just covering the updates on the communications and engagement work, and then I'll hand over to Joe for the other sections. As previously, we won't go through every item, but if there's anything in the report that you have questions about, then please do let us know. So under objective 4, you'll have seen that the driver shortage issue has continued to take up quite a lot of time over the past 3 months. That's obviously included producing and distributing resident letters and emails, as well as updating the website, frequently asked questions, and also managing the customer queries and complaints that come to us via Twitter, which has increased as a result of this issue. But alongside that, there's also other service delivery communications. We've had the restart of the bulky waste service, which was initially suspended because of the driver shortages, as well as comms related to the festive period and other items. In an update to report, and under that objective, we're also now progressing some comms for a round change in Surrey Heath, so where 2 rounds are being combined to free up a driver, and the residents will get letters about that by the end of next week to advise them about the collection patterns swapping over later in the month. Objective 5 is where we capture the more proactive kind of communications work, and you'll see that we've been continuing to amplify the Surrey Environment Partnership campaigns. They've been focusing on the priority areas of food waste recycling and reducing the contamination of dry mixed recycling. During this period, the latter part of that was specifically aiming to reduce contamination related to the Christmas period, as that's an area, a time when we do see an increase. And we mainly do that amplification work through the digital channels, so things like websites and Facebook, YouTube, etc., because we're able to target by postcode and just reach the residents in the joint contract area. So it makes it a very cost-effective exercise. Other Surrey Environment Partnership initiatives are covered there too, including the work with Green Redeem and Elmbridge on the trial for the waste reduction incentive scheme. You received an update on that just last week at the Surrey Environment Partnership members meeting, so I wasn't going to cover that again in any detail, except to say that the sign-up numbers have continued to increase since then, and we're now just short of 1,000 at 972. And then finally, just to highlight that we've evaluated the printed service guides. They're also funded by the Surrey Environment Partnership and distributed in the joint contract area. They went out in November. The evaluation shows very positive outcomes. Again, they're still valued and used by residents. So although, quite rightly, much of comms has moved online, printed communications does still have an important role to play. That's all the items I was going to highlight today. So I'll finish there and hand over to Joe, and then we can take any questions at the end. Thank you.
Thanks. Just like Pat, I wanted to highlight and give a quick summary of a couple of the areas of work that we've carried out over this period. The first one is sort of a precursor to something that's in the next item in our programme of work next year, which is to review our complaints processes and how we manage that across the 4 areas. So ahead of that, the East team in Mole Valley and Elmbridge have been carrying out some monitoring and to give us some snapshots and data around complaints and inquiries that they receive. So we've got a sort of baseline for that and some background information to help us on that project going forward. We've spent a lot of time working with Amy on the development of processes in Whitespace so that they can roll out that software. In particular, our focus has been on the aspects which are customer facing to ensure that the reporting forms and request forms work in the way that they need to for our customers. Work on contamination has focused on crew training. So it's an area of work that had already been rolled out in Surrey Heath, and the preparatory work was being undertaken to deliver these sessions in Elmbridge and Mole Valley. at the time this report was being produced, we hadn't started that, but a couple of those sessions have now taken place, and we'll continue to deliver those. We've made good progress on invoicing and KPI agreement. We had some backlog of that at the beginning of the year due to the IT issues that Amy had over Christmas and the beginning of 2021, but that's largely caught up now, and variable invoices are being agreed and submitted as quickly as we can, but with both the charging and the deduction elements included there. We've had some really positive work with Amy's safety manager to ensure that we're all working as closely as we can together to make sure that the work on the contract is carried out in a safe way. Clearly that's always a priority, but with the new manager that started, I think we've made some good inroads into working differently with Amy on that. Alongside that, internally, we've reviewed our own health and safety protocols to make sure that they're in line with the current best practice. And we've got a programme of depot audits that are due to get underway very soon. As in addition to that, we've implemented some additional health and safety training for the team as well. I think those were the key areas that I just really wanted to highlight. So like Pat, if there's any questions, happy to answer them, or any comments or feedback on the report.
Thank you very much. I see a hand from Councillor Tilling. Councillor.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just on the Green Redeem, because that's a trial taking place at the moment in Elmbridge. So we've increased the number of subscribers to 972, and that's after, 3 months, I think, of running the campaign. And a month or so ago, we had a full set of leafleting around residents in the borough. Personally, I think fewer than 1,000 out of a resident population of about 120,000 is a little bit disappointing. And I do wonder what else we can do to try and encourage more people to subscribe. I mean, personally, I find the website is very engaging. It's got videos, quizzes, some interesting articles, some good examples. It sort of emphasises different themes over different weeks. So it might be sort of pushing recycling on one set of weeks and then reusing, reducing, etc. On other weeks. You gain points for every activity you take part in on the website. Those points can lead to discounts on various products. They can be used for a prize draw. They can be donated to participating schools so they can use them. So it's a very well set up and very well thought through scheme. But just to have fewer than 1,000 people after 3 months of the trial is, as I say, I think a little disappointing. So I just wonder what more we can do to increase the number of subscribers.
Thank you for that. Yeah, we'll take that question now, actually.
Yeah, happy to respond on that. Yeah, just to update on the leaflet distribution. I think this may have been mentioned last week. It hasn't actually all been completed. There were some delays. The distribution company had some delays with, I think, COVID-related absences. So it's actually only gone out to, I think, maybe by now about 40% of the borough. So, and actually what we have seen is when they have landed, it has made a difference. So, this is interesting because it is what I've referenced in the last, as part of the update that, meetings is valuable, but actually sometimes it's the printed leaflet through the door that actually gets people's attention and gets them to look at that and think of signing up. So that has definitely been making a difference. The schools that are, a number of schools applied to be part of this and have points donated to them. They put forward proposals for eco projects. So again, they've had a few delays in getting that information out through the schools because the schools have also been quite hit by COVID absence, etc. But that's obviously starting to reduce down now. So I think they're able to get more engagement through that, and we're starting to see more parents signing up. And I think it is being, there's thank you for your description of the scheme, Councillor Tilling. It is a well put together scheme. There's lots of good content there. I think, I guess at the end of the day, this is a trial to see whether or not it is something that, a well designed scheme like this can get people encouraged to sign up, and it is going to run for a year. So we've got time, I think, to grow that number. But I think there is also, an advocacy element to this, a sort of a halo effect So I don't think it's all about the numbers. I think that's a very important part of it. But I think what we're looking.
You're breaking up badly there, Pat.
This is
Okay, I think your connection's a bit flaky at the moment, Pat.
the engagement level of the people who have signed up is very high. So comparative to other types, not something I can control. Have I answered the question sufficiently to finish?
The bits we heard, yes. There's a couple of bits we didn't. But I think we've got the gist. I just think I'd like to add actually that I tend to find that schemes like this are always excellently run, and it's always a behavioural issue of getting residents to sign up and so on and so forth. And I was just wondering whether Councillor Tilling, all councillors are on board with this in the borough and are actually pushing it themselves, and whether actually an opportunity for this to be discussed at something like the overview and scrutiny could often help. Anyway, just a pointer there. Councillor Salmon, you've indicated you'd like to speak. Thank you.
I'm absolutely in support of this, and in fact the numbers have gone up considerably and continue to seem to be going up. I think I'm not quite. I remember that 40,000 had been distributed of the leaflets. So if 40,000 have been distributed and you've got a 972% return, actually that's quite high, because it's got engagement. This is about getting the engagement of those people, those families. And if you look at, as I said in a previous meeting, if you look at why people recycle, why they do things, they do it because they're educated to, because of peer pressure, because they are naturally green, because others are showing them that that's the thing to do. And this is exactly what this does. On top of that, it gives the schools a benefit. So once you get, it's like a two-sided marketplace. Once you get the people interested and the ones who want to benefit out from it interested, you tie them together and the whole thing takes off and you get more people and more people involved. And we were actually watching, I watched the numbers, how they've gone up in the last month, and they've gone up from something like 300, Pat, was it? Then up to 800, and now it's at 972. So the numbers are going up. And so I would really love this one to be trialed next in my district, because I've got a feeling it would really work around here, where people are beginning to realise through our lottery that we do as a community lottery, that if they pay their £1 into that pot, they may get something back. And I think that's where this works really well. So I actually don't see this as a low return for what is actually quite a small amount of money. I can't remember how much it is, but isn't it 20 or 30,000, Pat? Yeah, she's nodding. I'm
worried I have no connection, but yes, the budget for the whole year is 30,000.
So it's really not a huge amount of money to get which is 972 families. It's not individuals, it's families engaged. So, and individuals, but I think it's doing really well, actually. And I think it is the right sort of thing, a multi-dimensional thing where it's sort of make it work. It's a lot of work for everybody, but I think it's really doing quite well. So I slightly dispute where are we going to get, how are we going to increase the subscribers? It's going out on every route possible. It's getting to the right people, and it's making a difference, probably in the bins. That's all.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for those comments. Does anyone else have any comments on this report? No. So we're asked to note it. Members, is that noted? Yep. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Right. So on to agenda item number 7. Just checking I'm not skipping by accident. Agenda item number 7. Joint Waste Solutions. The draft work programme for next year, 2022 into 2023. This, I believe, is being introduced by Joe. Joe, please introduce the report. Thank you.
Thanks very much. I'll just briefly introduce. I won't run through the entire appendix. It's a bit lengthy, but hopefully, if there's any questions or comments on any of it, then please do feed that back. As a team across the board, we've undertaken an exercise to look to build on the programme that we set out for the current year. So that's included reviewing and updating the objectives to ensure that they capture relevant areas and take into account any of the issues and changes that we've seen over the past year. As you know from the item we've just discussed, there's been a number of areas of progress on the work programme this year, although some work that we aim to deliver has not happened, and we therefore carry it forward. But alongside that, we've got a range of additional or new activities. What we've set out in terms of the activities and the descriptions, a lot of that could be considered sort of business as usual work. It includes aspects such as our contract monitoring work, the ongoing communications we have with residents about their services, and things such as the work we do with planners, developers and managing agents to make sure that new developments have full services from the point of occupation. But alongside all of that we do on a day-to-day basis, we've got some specific projects and activities that we've also set out to include and undertake next year. I mentioned previously the work on the customer complaints and inquiry process to make sure that we're dealing with those in line with all of the SLAs that the authority set, but also that we're dealing with them consistently too. The work that we're doing with Surrey's low performing areas team to introduce new services. So most specifically, the food waste collections to flats is a big priority there. We'll continue to focus on contamination to improve the quality and quantity of recycling that we collect through comms and engagement. And the Green Redeem Me project obviously is another one that carries on into the following year, and the evaluation that comes with that to identify how successful that has been as an individual project. We've got work that aligns with Surrey Environment Partnership objectives, where we'll be either taking part or taking advantage of some of the work that the partnership are doing to make the most of it in the joint contract area. We've identified some work to make sure we're keeping our business continuity and resilience plans updated and moving forward. We look to tie in with the carbon reduction priorities that the authorities have, and there's an overlap there again with some SCP work to review infrastructure, but we'll equally be looking to see what work can be done to investigate and or pilot some alternative vehicles or fuels alongside Amy and the trials that they're already conducting as an organisation elsewhere in the country. And finally, the last bit to highlight was that you clearly understand the pressures on authority finances, and we'll be working with all of our partners to identify where we can work more efficiently and identify potential savings for the future. I think hopefully that's a broad summary and a good introduction for you. I appreciate there's a lot of content there, and we're very keen to ask for your feedback on the objectives and the updated programme of activity. So here we're looking to take that feedback and then seek approval of that programme of work so that we can carry that forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll go straight to members with any questions. Hopefully there are some. In that case, I'll attempt to save the day and dive in with one first. Data, I've always found data is the key. And I'm conscious that the recovery of bins, when people A, stop subscribing, or B, if somebody moves house and they had a second bin for whatever reason, or houses are being demolished in a regeneration type scheme. How well are we doing at actually recovering bins so that we can reuse them in other areas, or are they kind of just left there and the new resident just comes on board and starts operating with them? I know that in Woking we've had some issues with bins not being collected through regeneration schemes, and I'm just trying to understand whether this is something that we need to be looking at in the wider picture, because I'm sure there's far more bins than there are residential properties in existence. And it's just trying to make sure that we're not acquiring new bins when better management of existing bins would be advantageous to us. So I appreciate a comment on that. And then I'll go to Councillor Salmon. Thank you.
I think that's a really valid point. I mentioned the work that we do when new developments are going in, but maybe there's more we can do to strengthen those communications with particularly housing providers if areas are, being people are moving out or so on to allow for redevelopment. So I think understand that there's maybe some joining up we can do there to make sure that either they're taking those containers away to be used themselves within their own housing stock if they're social housing providers, or that those are removed for recycling if they're no longer fit for purpose, or returned into stock to be used as second-hand containers if required. Stock management and looking to sort of improve the reuse of containers is something that's been under discussion as a project with Amy. In the longer term, it's not something that's been ticked off the list yet, but something we'll be looking to make sure we're making best use of the containers that are out there. And I agree with you on the data as well. The white space system allows us to have a better sight of a better record keeping ability to what assets, so specific containers are linked to particular properties. And we would want to take full advantage of that capability in the system to make sure that we know what containers are at a particular house. If someone has got approval for additional capacity because of the size of household or medical condition, so that we can keep that under review as well. So yeah, thank you for that. Hopefully that answers that.
I think so, yes, thank you very much. Councillor Salmon.
Thank you very much. Just a couple of little bits. I love the way that we've condensed the objectives. I like to have less objectives, even if we are merging two into one, but I think that's great. Right, there's a couple of specific things. Firstly, measures of success. I'm just wondering, all measures of success don't have any dates about them for targets. I just wondered whether they perhaps could or should. Some of them could easily have a target against them, but I don't want to get into KPIs because that makes life really complicated, but it was something maybe to think about in the future. On page 43, there's one bit which I don't understand quite. Work with Amy to improve removal of contamination from collected waste at Doman Road. Is Doman Road a depot? I don't know what Doman Road is. Is a depot, nodding head.
It's Surrey Heath depot, and their recycling material is bulked at that site before it's transported onto the MRF rather than being delivered directly.
Okay, right. Now the next bit, 2 bits down, comment on planning applications. I've kept away from planning since I've come back into the council and went to a planning meeting last night, and I now remember why. But comment on planning applications. Are you thinking of planning applications above a certain size? Because if you were to comment on all planning applications, you'd have to have a special officer doing that. So I just wondered what that actually meant, under what criteria.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, that's one of our sort of business as usual sort of day-to-day activities, if you like. We are often consulted by the planners on particular schemes. No, we don't look to comment on sort of individual householder builds or extensions, but where there's multiple new properties or large new developments, then yes, we do want to be able to input to that process.
So they're sort of liaising with you over what you think is the best way to do their bins.
That's correct, and we have recently updated the guidance that we provide to developers on that, and that's going to start being shared more widely soon. So a lot of work's been done on the information that developers can access up front. But then we do really want to work closely with them to not just make sure that the bin provision is correct, but also access for vehicles and that sort of thing where relevant.
And I can't remember where it is on this, it's probably not on this at all, but I'm aware that you have actually had some of the flats you're putting food bins into now, particularly in my district, but you are actually trying to get more into the flats anyway. How long will it be before we can get all of it? And is there anything that the cabinet members can do to push locally with their affordable housing type people, like for example with me at Clarion, I think you've got one block in Clarion being done, but we still haven't got all of them. I'm just wondering if we can do anything to help you.
Well, thank you. Yes, I'm sure sometimes it is very helpful to have some support from members in a particular area where we're looking to improve things. So we'll always consider that where we can. You're right. We've done some individual schemes. We've worked with housing providers to adjust, amend, improve the storage and collection facilities that certain sites have. The wider piece of work that is documented, I think it's, I'm just trying to scroll through page 44, it's under the activity to benefit from county-wide service improvement initiatives. And that captures the work that the low performing areas team that do work across Surrey are looking at to introduce food recycling to flats where there's no service. That's a larger scale project, which our own operations officers will take part in helping to deliver to roll that out. I don't have the figures to hand, but I know the first phase is quite a significant proportion of flats that have been identified as not having that service that we'll be looking to introduce it to.
Well, I know that they tend to have recycle and rubbish, and they tend to fill them up too quickly, and then they can't move on. Then you start getting the wrong stuff in the wrong bins because they just shove it anywhere. But it would be good to try and get more food in, because then we stop it going into the rubbish. The last question is, own your impact campaign. I am not certain exactly what that is. And on that same page, which is 46, I just wondered on social media why you didn't mention Facebook at all, because Facebook has a different audience to Twitter.
Okay, I can answer that. So those bits refer to Surrey Environment Partnership work. Sorry, I'm getting a message. My connection is unstable, so I'm not sure if this is going to last. But anyway, I'll try. So we run a sort of an annual Surrey Environment Partnership campaign for the last sort of year and a half or so. That's been themed around Watch Your Waste. We had originally planned to launch Own Your Impact just when the pandemic started, and felt it wasn't really an appropriate theme, but it had researched well with residents. So we're planning on starting that from May. So it's referenced in this programme because, as I mentioned earlier in the progress update, we do further work to amplify the Surrey Environment Partnership campaigns in the joint contract area. So that will basically be kind of trying to, I suppose, challenge residents, if you like, to think more about their individual impact and owning their impact and making those sort of small changes, whether it's recycling more, reducing waste, etc., that will make a difference. So that is what that refers to. And in terms of the social media, that's for the joint contracts there is a Twitter account, but we use the Surrey Environment Partnership Facebook to do the proactive communications, where we're trying to encourage people to do those behavioural change pieces of work. We find that that's better received. It gets less distracted by bin collection kind of issues if we use the Surrey Environment Partnership channels for that. But again, as I said earlier, we're able to target by postcode to particularly reach the residents that live in the joint contracts areas. So we use the Facebook, Instagram and YouTube Surrey Environment Partnership channels to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Very much appreciated. Councillor Tilling.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that thorough report. I think in the business of Objective 5, inspiring and encouraging residents to reduce, reuse and recycle quality material, I welcome all the effort that SEP have put into, of late, it's trying to encourage better food waste collection, which is good. I think there was a campaign there, wasn't it? It was Watch Your Waste. I think comms is key, and I still get quite a number of inquiries from residents saying, can I recycle such and such? Can I recycle my pizza box? Do I have to separate the plastic from the cardboard on a flan case? Can I recycle my sandwich container because it's got a plastic window on it? So I think comms is absolutely vital, and I would just encourage SEP and JWS to continue comms, even if it's putting sticky labels on the bins to say the following can be recycled, the following shouldn't be recycled, postcards through the letterbox or whatever. But we, residents and ourselves need constant reminders of what can be recycled and what can't?
Yeah, I'm happy to just expand on that a little bit. So we, as part of the Surrey Environment Partnership Programme, we do a number of things to try and help that. So there is the annual recycling guide, which is delivered to every household in the autumn. That includes information about what should go in each bin, etc. We also have the Surrey Recycle Search Tool, an app, which is another Surrey Environment Partnership project. And that's where people can just put in their postcode and check any item in their area and find out how to respond to that. I mean, you know, we're growing the usage of that kind of all the time. And yeah, a lot of the kind of campaign work is to try and highlight that and to remind people that that is there for them. You know, as with everything, as Councillor Davis said earlier, this is all about behaviour change and getting people to sort of used to certain habits. So the more, again, you know, that you can help, your colleagues can help to sort of spread the word about these things that are available, the better, you know, because using a tool like that means that everything that a resident puts into that search tool or that app to check means it's going in the right bin and not the wrong bin. So that's a really key kind of tool for us in terms of, you know, dealing with contamination and making sure things go in the right places. So yeah, that is a tool that we have available and we are promoting, but would always welcome help in getting that message out to residents who query what they can and can't do with an item. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I certainly find the app useful, and I'm regularly pushing people in the direction of that app. I think it makes a lot of sense. Something that just occurred to me, and I find this quite often, is that many residents incorrectly believe that pizza boxes can be recycled, and I know often the lids can be if you tear them off, but most people chuck them in anyway. And I was wondering, and I try not to eat too many takeaway pizzas, so I can't think of a box off the top of my head. But if we thought of working with takeaway providers, pizza providers, and asking them to label their boxes in such a way that says it can't be recycled, just wondering whether that's something we should be thinking about based on that. It's not really a question to answer here, but I just think that we should be it is all about behaviour change, and I think actually thinking outside of just our normal hooks into residents, actually trying to work with other businesses that may be recycling and coming up with some more ideas may actually help quite a bit. Joe, you mentioned white space, and I was very concerned about the introduction of white space at our last meeting. I don't know whether Amy intend on covering it under item number 9, but I was just wondering if, knowing that most residents input into JWS and Amy is via computer systems, and white space is a replacement for the current one, and the current one has been quite challenging at times. I was just wondering if it was worth having a short update on the introduction of white space, because I think it came on stream sometime in January. I don't know whether, Joe, you want to pick this up, or whether you want to ask any Amy colleagues, unless they intend on picking it up in item 9. I appreciate a view on white space, please.
If I can take that one, Chair. We've got some slides on it later on in our presentation, and really just to cover white space off, unless Joe has anything to probably input at the time.
No, I think if Councillor Davis is happy if we get the update and there's more questions, then are you happy that we come back to that at that point?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I just wasn't sure if it was going to get covered there, and I didn't want to lose the opportunity, having had the link given to me. So thank you for that.
Understood.
Okay. Does anyone else have any further questions on this report on the draft programme? Does look comprehensive to me. Councillor Salmon.
And that is, I'm sitting here with a really big toner unit sitting next to me, and I'm wondering if they are recyclable in our places where they go to be reused, because the person that used to collect these is no longer collecting them. So I'm just wondering, because that that's a big piece of plastic I don't want to throw away. So is there anywhere that we can recycle them in the system as it exists, or should it be something we should have at the civic recycle centres if we don't do it already?
Thank you for that. I have a bit of knowledge here in that I use HP toners, and for years and years they have done a collect or a postal delivery service, so I always send mine back. But I'm just wondering if anyone's got the app in front of them, what does the app say for the Mole Valley area? Because it could be, I'm pretty sure that when I've been to the Surrey recycling centres around Woking, that I see toners there, but
I don't think I've seen them.
I'm not sure either. Anyone got any further insight rather than my ramblings?
Certainly in terms of curbside service, no, we won't be accepting those for recycling in any of those. I would need to do some delving into what facilities are available locally in Mole Valley for that.
I think it would be helpful because the one person that I know who used to collect them in, she's a small one-man business and would just pick them up when she delivered stationery or whatever it was to you. And she said it's now costing so much to send it back that as a small business, she can't afford to do it. So all of this, which was in fact a revenue stream for a charity, has just disappeared. So someone's put a hand up there. So.
Yes, it's Marissa from Surrey, and I was rather hoping I was going to come to you in a second anyway.
Well, I mean, Richard's always the guy with all of the answers at the touch of his fingertips, isn't he? But my understanding is we do collect printer cartridges, toners at the CRCs, and we send them to the charities still. I'm pretty sure that's the case. I will get confirmation from Richard, but I'm sure all of our CRCs are doing that.
Well, if you can confirm that, I'll put it out because I know a lot of people that have them.
Okay, thanks. I will.
Thank you.
I will also check that it's in the app. I think it probably is, but I can't check without a postcode. So because you need a postcode for the particular area, but I suspect that information will be in there, but I will double check that as well. That's as I'm sure it's covered.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think it would be worthwhile checking the postcode of all 4 boroughs, a postcode from all 4, just to be sure that it is there. But I think, Councillor Salmon, check with the actual manufacturer, because it wouldn't surprise me if under European directives previously they have to have some form of recycling scheme. As I say, I've been recycling with HP toners for over a decade, so I know that they certainly do it.
This is a recycled toner. It's a Me Too one, as they say. So I just don't get why they're now not just taking them back automatically, but they've stopped. They're charging to take them back.
Okay, thank you for that. Has anyone got any further comments, points they'd like to raise on this particular agenda item, number 7? No, if not, right. Thank you. In that case, we will jump to agenda item 8, which is a presentation from Amy.
Can I just, sorry to interject, can I just ask that we were seeking approval for the programme on that item, so if we can just...
Sorry, thank you.
No, that's all right.
Approved.
And funny enough, it is in my notes that I should be asking for that. So yes, we are happy to approve that, members.
Approved.
Yeah, thank you very much. Right, much appreciated. So on to agenda item 8. Now I know, Lara, you're going to deliver this presentation. May I ask, are you going to do 8 and 9 together, or are you going to split it? Agenda items 8 and 9.
So we're going to start with garden update, because I think that's most pressing, and then we're going to move on to the update of our development plan.
Okay, thank you. Just so help with the minuting of the.
Yeah, we're going to stop for questions.
Going to stop for questions after the garden waste, right? Okay. Probably a good idea. Right. Okay. Thank you. So Lara, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me just load the presentation. So I'm hoping everyone can now see this presentation.
Yes, I can. Yes.
Thank you. So good morning, everybody. We're just going to start the meeting, as I said before, with the update on the garden waste service. If you do want to ask questions as I go through, then please do. I won't be able to see hands up, so please just interrupt me. So starting off with where we last spoke to you about the plan. So that was back in December, and the plan in December, the roadmap, if you like, for restoring the garden waste from what is currently not a suspended service, it's a reduced service currently, to getting back to the full service in 2022. We started off on the roadmap January to April, and said that by the end of April, we would bring our driver vacancies down from -17. So in December, we have 17 vacancies to 8 by the end of April, down to 3 by the middle of the year, and then down to 1 by the end of the year. And as we went through the year, that was going to enable us to, by the end of April, deliver a 4-weekly service, moving to a fortnightly service by September 2021 was our goal when we last spoke. So that was just a reminder for those that either weren't on the call or are new to what the agreement was when we last went through the presentation. So where does that leave us now? Where's our progress versus what we suggested? So where we sit now at the end of February, we sit with a shortfall of 11 drivers. This actually means that we've had a net increase of 6 between December and February. So if you remember, we were looking to bring that number to 8 at the end of January, and we're already down to 11 vacancies just through the last 2 months. We do have a slight downside to that in terms of leavers. So in February alone, we saw 5 leavers, which were 4 agency drivers, not salary related, and 1 full-time member of staff who actually retired, having been with us for a long period of time. So this is about bringing people in, as well as then accounting for any further losses that we see as we move through the year. So as it stands at the moment, we did return to a 50% service in the month of February, and we continue to deliver that service moving forward. So how have we managed that recovery at this point? So I wanted to share with you what we were seeing in applications prior to the market supplement. So let's look at the impact of that supplement. So here on the graph, you've got the months of November through to December, and then through to moving through January, February. So this is where we were when we last spoke to you. We were seeing little or no drivers. In fact, in the month of November, we saw 6 applicants in total, 5 of which were in the first week, and then not a lot happened. Between the 8th of November and the 6th of December, we saw 1 applicant. And then, having announced that market supplement in terms of where the blue line is here, you can see that we then started to get applications. So prior to the market supplement, we really weren't seeing much traction at all in terms of applications. And since then, you can see we've had them every week, really starting to build in January, ebbing and flowing, and still being in the sort of 5s and 6s a week coming out of late February. All in all, we've had 49 applicants in the first 2 months of 2022. So the impact has been great in terms of being able to get those applications through the door, which is not what we were seeing previously. But what does that look like in terms of actual recruitment and retention of the people that come through our door from those applications? So just taking February on its own, we saw 23 applicants received since the end of January. 8 didn't attend on day 1 when they were booked in. 2 didn't attend on day 2. 6 do have future inductions booked in, but again, given our what we see in the pattern, there's no guarantee that all 6 will arrive. 2 went partway through their induction, decided that waste wasn't for them, and we've got 5 that have been successful and remained with us. So we estimate over the period of time that we've been seeing these applications about a 25% conversion rate from the start of that process of them applying for the position right the way through to actually staying with us for a period of time. So what have been the challenges? What have we experienced through offering this market supplement in the last few months? 49 applications, as we said, in 2022. But what we have experienced is lower quality and less experience of those drivers than anticipated. So we hope that market supplement would bring us applications, and our anticipation was that they would bring applications of the level of drivers we were seeing previously. So people with HGV experience, people that don't have points on their license, and people who are well equipped to drive these rear steer vehicles, preferably having had experience in them before, because they do kick out completely differently to a bus or another large vehicle. But we're not seeing that. We're seeing people without experience having just passed their tests, and you know, in terms of that quality, it isn't there. Our current agency staff, whereas before we could use them as a pool and a way in terms of recruitment, what we're predominantly seeing is a transient nature. So what we're predominantly seeing is agency people coming through, either just looking for a job where they get a better paid job, or the job they really wanted, or just passing through the area, or indeed looking to change their careers altogether. I think COVID has made people think long and hard about what they may want to do in the future. So we're seeing a much more transient nature of that. And hence that's where we see a lot of our losses. Some people are moving for the permanently high salaries. So at the moment we have a 3-tier salary. We start at £12.59 as being the basic pay. We have the market supplement of the £1.68. And then the third layer is the either retention bonus or the new starter bonus, depending where you are in your employment with Amy. So it's a 3-tier structure. The structure gets you, if you're a permanent member of staff, to £15.23 an hour, but your starting point on your contract that you receive is £12.59. And I think because both the market supplement and the bonus are not guaranteed to continue, it does lead to people moving to higher salaries, which are permanent. That's their salary, and that's what's on their contract, rather than this sort of 3-layer piecemeal that we're currently in. We know why we're here. We're not looking to increase salaries permanently to a higher level, and that was kind of the agreement of the group and everyone on this call. And so the structure is the structure, but it does lead other people to look for a more permanent basis when they're applying for mortgages and rents and so on and so forth. And then we look at the external influences. So we've got the airports reopening. Gatwick's going to be expanding to both its terminals. Heathrow's expanding. They've obviously let their drivers go, and they are going to be offering premium rates. We've already been advised by the agencies in order to bring back that permanent workforce at a quick succession for themselves to be gearing up for the summer months that we're heading into, now that there are less and less restrictions when it comes to going abroad and taking that flight. So from December, we forecasted within our numbers as saying we would get this money back, 1 lever per month. That's what on average we used to see. We felt that that's what we would see from the market supplement. However, if you look from mid-January to now, we've actually seen 13 levers, 5 of which we've had to dismiss through safety. So when I say safety, this is vehicles that are causing property damage or vehicle damage, and not something that the contract can bear, and not something that we wish to take forward. So despite the inductions and the assessments that we do, and then the accompanied driving that we do, we're still seeing drivers that are coming to us having these accidents. More predominantly the agency team than the current existing Amy employees. So what does our forecast look like to the end of March? As it stands, we're looking to be at -8. So that was the number we were looking for the end of April. In our original plan, we're hoping to be there by the end of March. There is uncertainty. We don't know what's going to happen on a week-on-week basis. You know, and sometimes we come in on a Monday morning and find that we've got 2 or 3 people that have decided to leave, and maybe the drivers that we signed up to start that week don't arrive, or maybe do 2 or 3 days, and that's happened this week, and then pop the keys on the desk and said, actually, this isn't for me. So that's the number we're looking for, but there is uncertainty in terms of how we get from here to there with the losses that we see. As I said before, 13 levers in what is roughly six weeks is a lot to contend with when you're trying to bring people through the system and top up while you're losing vastly more per month than we forecast. So in terms of the risk to early full service restoration, and I think it's important to note that the service restoration plan that we talked to you about and that we sent before in 2021 is part of our contingency planning, and therefore we are looking at the waste streams which is less impactful for the community in terms of where we prioritise, the same as we would on a snow day, and so on and so forth. So our confidence does remain high in terms of restoring a full service in line with our December plan. So just in terms of that would be looking at September 2022. And earlier full service recovery remains our prime objective. Beyond anything else, we spend our days recruiting. There's a huge amount of work that the teams have done to get through that 49 people. There's been a huge amount of work that's happened in and around bringing people on board. And it's not just that 6 that you see as the differential right now. So it's our prime objective. However, precise timing is going to be dependent on the quality of applications that we continue to see. So I think what we've done with the market supplement is we've lifted ourselves to a position where we can get applicants, but we are seeing a lot lesser quality than we would normally see if we went back 12 months. So for joint consideration, do we look at a review of the current market supplement, and this bearing in mind when I say consideration, this is for an earlier restoration than what we have forecast that we spoke about back in December. So look at the current market supplement, or do we reprioritise? Do we decide that actually the variable waste service is actually needs to be put ahead now of core services? So do we prioritise it beyond recycling, food and refuse? So just really things to consider about how we could possibly speed up that restoration of the full service. Any questions?
Thank you for that. If it's possible, Lara, for you to close down the presentation, and then I can.
Of course.
I'll be able to see everyone on the screen, which would help me.
Absolutely.
I see Councillor Tilling has a question, so we'll go straight to him. Thank you, Councillor Tilling.
Yes, thank you. Just a couple of points then off the top of my head straight away. No, I think it would be disastrous to prioritise the garden waste variable service over the core services. I think we don't have very many. Well, a sort of much smaller percentage of our residents subscribe to garden waste, but clearly the core services apply to every resident. So yeah, we've got to continue to make that our priority, and suspending garden waste was a sensible contingency to be able to keep that going. The second point is really just a couple of questions. I'm not too sure currently then what the plan is for the market supplement and for the bonuses. Do we have a sort of a timetable of when we are thinking of stopping those?
Yes, thank you for your question. There isn't a timescale as it stands. We agreed with yourselves as a committee that we will review the market supplement every 3 months in line with what's happening in the marketplace. And I would say that the pressure on HGV drivers is still there. If anything, it's increasing. We haven't necessarily seen the drop off of those quality drivers we were hoping for coming away from the Amazons of this world and so on and so forth. I think people shop differently now. I think people look more to things to be delivered, and if anything, the demand for delivery drivers is still very much there. In terms of, sorry, what was the second part of your question? I apologise.
No, it's just asking really about the timetable of the supplement and the bonuses.
Yes,
just to help Lara out. I mean, in essence, Councillor Tilling, it's a rolling approach to this that was established last year with that review points, and in a sense it's considered, I guess, to be in place indefinitely, and while we actually look at market, as you say, how does the market reset itself, when does it reset itself, and do we return to levels of driver costs that were seen 9 months ago? At the moment, the view is that they're holding up longer, and therefore it's a rolling approach that needs to be sustained as a minimum. I think the point being is that it's applications, but our churn on quality is substantially higher than we would have foreseen.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, my view on that is that seeing as you're still only estimating that we can get back to a full service in September 22, then clearly we need to keep the bonuses and the market supplement going. It's such a competitive area, and you've mentioned Heathrow and Gatwick getting back to normal. Yeah, I think again it would be disastrous if we were to drop those bonuses and supplements. If we've still got the shortages you've described, 8 vacancies predicted by the end of March, then we need to do whatever we can to try and restore services to normality as soon as we can. I mean, personally, I still think that maybe, I mean, because I'm not in the business and you're obviously working very hard at it, I still think from our residents' point of view, we really ought to be looking to get garden waste services back to normal as soon as possible. And I would suggest, we were looking at the end of March. To say that that's not going to be back to normal until September, right? I think we need some more measures, if that's at all possible, to get this back to normality.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Laura's just sort of raised those 2 areas for consideration. You've commented on one in terms of the merits or otherwise of changing priorities of that variable service over others. I think, you're then left with the issue, if it's felt as a minimum, the supplementary levels that the supported at the moment are the minimum levels that are going to be needed for the foreseeable. You could say at the moment we're not getting the full effect of that had it been a actual physical full rate increase. Because if you walk through and said, what are you going to pay me? We can't outwardly say it's £15.23. We can say it's a combination of X, Y, and Z that gets you to £15.23, as opposed to if they walk somewhere perhaps around the corner, that they're being offered that or better. So there's a debate over that before you actually look at is that level as a lever to restore things, in an accelerated way. Is it up for review?
Thank you for that. Joe, you wish to add?
Yeah, I just obviously it's helpful to understand the current position and where we're headed. Interesting that the questions are being raised around the level of market supplement that's being offered, because that was a key part of Amy's proposal in order to recover the service. Those bonuses and that level of market supplement were identified as solutions to the problem. I just wondered, given the timing and the comments about the baseline salary, whether it's possible to remind the members of the committee about the pay review process, which I believe you'll be sort of shortly going into with staff and the unions to review salaries on your sort of annual salary increase. That would be helpful to just understand that process and the timelines of that, because that would see an adjustment to the baseline salary potentially. I appreciate you can't confirm what direction of travel that is, but we know there's a contract uplift coming, and that reflects the anticipated increase in salary that you're seeing.
So if I can just take that one. Thank you, Joe, for your question. So our salary increases would come in from April the 1st. What I would say is that the difference between the 12.59 they get now and the 15.24 that Martin just alluded to is about 21%. And there isn't a plan in anybody's diary in terms of uplifting salaries to that extent come April as part of the norm. So it's I think in terms of restoration, we suggested the market supplement and bonuses, and I would say that that's been a success. We have certainly seen the applicants, but what we didn't anticipate was that the quality of those coming through. We thought that would bring back our people. That's what people were looking for. We were advised by the agency that was an entry level, but we felt the 12.59 we were paying previously was entry level, so we felt that that's what we'd be getting. But that's not what we've seen. I think the demand is so high that the people we used to get are being taken one way, and we're left really with the option of taking risks, I suppose, in terms of looking at the experience and the quality of the drivers that we have. And that's not to say just because you've only just learned to drive your HGV vehicle that you wouldn't be the best person in the world. But equally, you know, if you just pass your driving license as an individual, then your car insurance is higher. So, you know, the risks are there and in the industry. So yeah, I suppose it's just, although we've come back into the market, we've come in right at the bottom in terms of that. So the strategy has worked. The number was a good number to get applicants. So I think there's some ticks in the box there. It does what it says on the tin. It was just not anticipated the quality.
Thank you. Jeff, you'd like to add or question?
Sure, please, just very briefly, from officer perspective, in terms of the situation, the September date was a little bit of a surprise when it was tabled previously. There's been lots of conversations since then that have been quite positive about earlier dates for restoration. So certainly from an officer point of view, we will be picking up those conversations outside of this meeting to try and get the earliest resolution we can. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for that. Yeah, I mean, I think we're all absolutely keen to see it restored as soon as possible. And I echo some of the comments that Councillor Tilling made. From my perspective, I'm upsetting many thousands of residents or every fortnight by not collecting the green. I don't want to triple that by upsetting the entire borough by not collecting their residual or their recycling. Very pleased to see that Amy will trying to think of the right word here, trying to be sensitive. I've got to go just fire those drivers that are not up to scratch in terms of health and safety. That's good news, and obviously that puts the system under pressure by doing that. But it's good that the safety is paramount, and I think everyone here would agree with that. I note that we say we're going to be 8 drivers short by the end of the month, and we've then, if we take out the 5 that have left through safety, we've had 8 that have left. And so my question really is, obviously, if those 8 hadn't have left, then we would be in a position where we would have the exact number of drivers we need. Do drivers go through an exit interview process? Do we know what they're saying? Is it purely pay? They're worried about just before you, sorry, Mark, because I think if it is pay, then we know that there are inflationary pressures coming along this coming year. Inflation is up and over 5% or something at the moment. Is the April increase actually not going to do much at all? And do we need to, before we get to the June meeting of this committee, actually, really start to delve into that at an officer level in much more detail? So if you wouldn't mind answering those points, and then sure. I'll go to Councillor Salmon. Thank you.
Yeah, just before I'll go back to Laura in a minute, but I mean, Laura made the point, I think, somewhere about those sort of practical experiences we're finding. The route to bringing them in long term has been openly established that we would be going through a short-term haze agency route as a route we've used in the past. What they found is that the agency drivers are very transient and they're not looking for anything long-term. And in many cases, I think Laura has found that they've come in whilst they're holding inquiry on 3 or 4 other jobs and stayed a week, a month, short-term, and planning on rolling over until that bigger rate came through. So we're not. That's part of the sort of the quality mix piece that we're sort of grappling with. So that's the issue that ultimately, yes, it is about. There are higher rates that they can ultimately capture.
Okay, thank you very much. And so are you basically saying that the 8 that left, for example, were just pay related.
If I can come back on that. Yeah, if I can come back on that. So there is a mixture. I think we've had some people, as I said before, who just wasn't for them, but they didn't give any more information. So yes, we do have a conversation with them, find out where they want to leave, see if there's anything that we can do. We've had some people that have been on the agency and willing to come and work for Amy full time. But when they moved from the agency rate of 14.27, which is the combination of the basic salary and the £1.68 market supplement, when we then give them an Amy contract that says 12.59, and then here's some letters about the market supplement that we could take away, and here's the letter about the bonus, they sort of go, no, thank you. And then you're into this 3-layer conversation, which is difficult to explain. And people have walked out at that point, if you like, because they feel like we're sort of conning them in a way, and they're better off with the agencies. There's also been occasions whereby we had a couple of bus drivers that came to us. We were really hopeful about that, but actually the experience of driving the rear steer was something they didn't want to continue doing. And then, as you said, we've had incidences. And then through some of those applications, they don't come back. You know, they do day 1 of induction, probably realise what's involved. It was 3 days of induction. It is quite intense. And then don't come back the next day. And we get no explanation even when we chase the agencies in terms of that, which we do chase, and they chase for an explanation, because obviously we are holding them to account. So it's varying degrees of what people are coming here for. And then we have other people, as I've said, who will come, they do the induction, but when it comes to the assessment, they're not good enough. It's not something they're willing to take risk on. We had somebody more recently that did 3 days, then went out with support crew, and on day 5, the support crew reported back that they just weren't safe. They just weren't going to be safe. They were too nervous, they were too hesitant, and actually that's going to cause an accident in itself. So again, you know, unfortunately, we had to make a choice in terms of letting people go.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for that. Joe, you've indicated, would you like to add something? I assume on the same subject.
Yeah, I was sorry, because I think I might have jumped the queue, kind of, Caroline's councillor.
Well, if it's related to what we're talking about, then fine.
Yeah, it is. It was really, you know, obviously we've talked, there's been discussion here about the market supplement and the bonuses, which were key parts of the recovery plan. Another element of that was to train new drivers, and we've not had an update on that. So I suspect I'm quite keen to know where that's headed.
It's part of my question too.
Thank you. In that case, then, Councillor Salmon, I'll let you formally ask the question.
I had 3 elements, which was what is happening with the trainees. We seem to have lost them down, and obviously trainees are going to be inexperienced when they're finished. What happens at the end of the trainees driving, assuming they're getting through? And I thought that they would be going for their tests about now. Do they go out with an experienced driver sitting beside them to make sure that they do know what the safety is like and things like that? Or do they just go out with a crew? And if we have these drivers which are hesitant, do we test the driver going round somewhere that's easy to drive before we start sending them out on the more complicated ones where one car will block a road? Because I've noticed more and more blocked roads being reported. And I think it's because the new drivers are less concerned, they're not sure of the width of their vehicles, where of course the more advanced ones will know that they can get through something with 8 inches either side. So what is happening with the training? What happens after the training? Are we continuing the training? Because I think that's really important. And back to the market supplement, we as a council signed up to a supplement, the amount of money over a year. So I know you're reviewing it every 3 months, but are you assuming that you are going to have it for a year? And I see why you have to do it separate to the main money, but maybe it could be sold in slightly differently, so that they know at least they get that year, and then you might get the year out of a person instead of 3 days.
Thank you, Councillor Salmon. Just before going back to the Apprentice piece, just answering your in reverse a little bit. Yeah, look, how we construct the the supplemental payment, I think, is part of what we're sort of flagging up now, is that it's done in a manner that creates some flexibility, that anticipated some change and reversion of market conditions. If the market conditions are not looking anytime soon to change, maybe we are better off giving that more longer term, up to a year or whatever, visibility for drivers coming, so we'd have more benefit there. So that's a fair point to look at. I mean, I think going on to the driver and apprentice program, I know Lara and ourselves have given presentations to the officers and JWS over recent couple of months or so, and I'm not sure whether they didn't come to this last meeting, but in essence, Lara will detail it. But that is and remains a key strand of sustainable driver numbers and getting the numbers back up. The experience, though, has been very challenging in terms of getting initial apprentices through just the theory tests and beyond, and the sort of number of repeat tests that we're encouraging, etc. So it's there. How much is it bearing fruit at the moment? Incredibly slowly, and Lara can go into more detail on that. But it's certainly not been, dropped off our radar.
Okay, thank you for that. Paul, you wish to add?
Yeah, could I ask two questions, please? One is for Amy, I think, and one might be for Neil. I think my understanding is historically we've operated the garden waste service without the full number of staff required. There's always, I think, been a few vacancies.
Yeah.
How, we need the staff that we need, but how many do we actually need? How far away are we from being able to operate a service the way we were, say, 12 months ago by carrying some vacancies?
I think, again, I'll go into the detail in a minute, but the high level answer to that is that what those figures are reflecting is still an assumption that we have absenteeism as well that we're having to cope with, not just through annual leave, but just through pure absenteeism, short-term sickness, etc. So it's not anticipating that says until we hit 100% driver numbers, the service doesn't come back. So it's not. I think another reminder is that in the Q3 type period of last year, where we were in discussion, we sustained a service at levels that were putting the wider service delivery under strain, because we were having supervisors and others and parts of the sort of management going out and driving. And that, I think we probably brought it to these discussions as well, is that, that as a stopgap, you can work that, but you can't sustain it on that basis without ramifications elsewhere. I don't know, Laurie, want to add to that?
Yeah, I think the other thing to note as well is that previously, where we had vacancies, it was short term because we knew we could reach out to the agency. We'd have somebody of a relatively good quality that we could bring in probably 2 or 3 days, and we'd be able to replace that person. So the fact that the management team stepped in for 1 or 2 days, that's fine. That's a manageable situation, if you like. But what we're seeing is there is zero backup from the agency. So if we have a vacancy, we have a vacancy for 2, 3, 4 weeks. There's not an instant turnaround on that individual. As I said on one of my previous slides, we've got 5 people who are having to give notice before they can start. So again, that's a month away. So we don't have the access to that backup, if you like. So in top of our allowance for bank staff, if for want of a better word, we also use the agency, but that is gone. So it's almost, for ourselves, we have to have full staffing to guarantee it, because the full staffing would then be our dip into pot if something was if a large amount of people were to call in sick. And we do get varying numbers. It might be on one day we've got 10 people off in one site. I mean, sometimes the numbers are crazy, and I'm not really talking about COVID related. I'm just talking about sickness. So it's something that we're also heavily managing as well. In terms of the driver training, I do have some slides. I'm happy to share them with you if you would like me to go through them with you.
conscious of time, or we can append them to the.
Can I just ask one more question to Neil, please?
Well, I'm conscious that Councillor Perry would like to speak. And this new thing on the slides for training, I think the committee would like to see those, but I'm also very conscious of time. So I think initially I'll ask Councillor Perry to make your comments, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Maybe an answer you all know already, but how long are we committed to pay this market supplement for? Is there an agreement on a time frame?
1 year.
Yes, I think it's 1 year with it being reviewed on a regular basis. So 1 year will go through December. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that. Paul, you wish to say something?
I just wondered, and Neil may or may not know, what's the national picture with garden waste suspensions? I know back in August there was a number of us in this boat. Are we outliers now, or are there a number of councils nationally in the same boat?
I think very much as you say, in August and through the autumn, there was a large number, both neighbourhood and throughout the country. All those that we'd previously been tracking are now back offering a full service. The last one I was aware of was Newham, which just brought their full service back. So yeah, I think nationally it's we are now outliers in not.
Yeah, I mean, the only comment I'd just quickly add is that, you know, from the other contracts we operate, whilst the definition of bringing a full service back, it's less frequent elsewhere, and certainly it's a service that through the winter is far less frequent. So the return of service, it means different things across different boroughs. Council.
Yeah, I think, Martin, your point on that one is obviously other boroughs traditionally stand down service over winters, and they're obviously not operating a service where they wouldn't. But in terms of normal service pattern, I'm not aware of any others who've interrupted their service pattern.
Hey, thank you for that. Tad worrying that we're sort of really at the back of the queue on this one. Kelly, may I go to you, please?
Yeah, just really quick. I'm conscious that, you know, there's sort of a lot of news that's landed here today, and I think we need to take stock. So I would welcome a proper proposal or report from Amy, give consideration to, and if we need to arrange a separate meeting to discuss that we do that instead.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm quite concerned about the inflationary pressures that are coming along, and that we're just going to go backwards. And knowing that we're, you know, one of the few sets of boroughs that are not yet in a position to go back, you know, we cannot find ourselves in a position where we get to, you know, later on in the year and we're having to restrict the service again. There's just no way that would ever be an acceptable situation, I think, for any, certainly for the residents. Lara mentioned a presentation on training. I'm actually quite keen to see that, so I'm just wondering if other members are as well. And then I'd like, you know, I'd like to draw a line under the green waste if I can, as much as possible. Receive the presentation on training, and then move forward in the with time. Councillor Heath.
Just to say, I'm really interested in that presentation. Can it be sent to me? Because I was scheduled to finish this meeting at 1, and I've got another one to chair now. So sadly, I've got to go. But any way of sharing that in any form would be much appreciated.
Absolutely, no problem with that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Heath, for your input. Much appreciated. We'll get those shared to everyone. Okay, Lara, are you ready to go with that presentation?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Just pull that up. Okay, so in terms of that, oh, sorry, it bounced. Let me just get to the right slide. Apologies. There we go. So in terms of the drivers, we've opened up not just the internal people, so taking our loaders through some training to be a driver. We've also opened that up externally. So we got a further 3 applications internally, and we got a further 17 externally. The people that actually came to the interview were in varying degrees, so 9, 2, 3, and 3 at the bottom there, so 16. And then offers made have been 6. So at the moment, we're just assigning them up to get their provisional license. And as I've said previously, and you know, some of these licenses come back straight away, and some of them months later, we're still waiting on licenses. As can be borne out on this spreadsheet. So what you've got here is people that started right at the beginning, and we've still got 3 that are waiting for their license to be returned. Interestingly enough, I was listening to LBC this morning, and the presenter on there, he's been waiting 6 months for his license to be returned. So I think there's a, you know, some people get it back the next day and some people don't. And that's where we are with 3 of them, unfortunately. We haven't even got off the starting point, if you like. So we've also got a selection of people that have undergone their theory test, and there's been varying degrees of success there. So we've got 2 people that have actually passed, and they now have a date for training, and that will be 5 days training with a test at the end. So we have 2 people, one in the middle of March was the earliest there, and then one at the beginning of April was the earliest that they could fit them into this this training and testing of these individuals. We are giving people chances to pass these various different elements. And the first hurdle, if you like, is the theory test. So this is about people's ability from academically, if you like. What the test centre actually offers is the minute you have a log on for your theory test, you can go in and there's sessions to do every day that gives you a multitude of test papers, advice, presentations, training. So to really aid people being able to pass this theory test. We can actually monitor that in terms of people commitment to be doing that review and that training before they do these tests. But at this minute in time, we have 2 going forward to the training. We have 3 waiting for licenses, and the remainder we're still putting in for their varying retakes on theory. So we will continue to track that. In terms of last time we met, we did get asked what opportunities are they going to get to pass the test. So we did think we'd just lay this out for you. All staff will get 9 months to complete the training from gaining their provisional license, that being the key date. Beyond that, it's not their fault, but from gaining it, they'll get 9 months. They'll get 5 opportunities to pass the theory, 4 to pass the practical tests, of which there are 3. And for our existing loaders, if they fail to become a driver, they would return to their loader position. Those positions are being backfilled, but those positions will be held open for them. For external trainees, they will have an extended probationary period of 9 months. And if they fail and there isn't a loader job available, or they don't want to take it, then they would end their employment with Amy. And this really is just a bit of an update, as we were talking earlier, in terms of where we can offer the service depending on the number of vacancies that we have. And that was it. Any questions? I'll just stop sharing so you can, there you go.
Thank you for that, much appreciated. Are there any questions? Councillor Salmon.
Yeah, what if this waiting for the licenses to be returned? Can we do anything to chase it up if some people are getting it quicker and we're not? Is there a way that we can talk to somebody who issues it to find out why they're not being returned quickly?
So when we've talked to the agency, they can't give us specifics. I know that the guys individually are chasing these weekly, you know, to where this is in the system. If you've changed address recently, or you know, that you've got complications, I don't know, something on your license, I don't know, maybe you've got diabetes or something like that, then this will mean your license takes a lot longer to come back. I think I said in December, myself, I moved house in September and I didn't get my driving license back till this year. So, you know, it's an ongoing situation that is taking a long time. And that was because I've moved house. So if we've got any of those situations, then they're taking time to come back and there is no rhyme nor reason.
Thank you. Okay, I don't see any further indications. So I think what we'll do is move on to the next item on the agenda, which is item number 9, which is the contract improvement plan. Lara, I think it's back to you again. Thank you. Another presentation, I believe.
Indeed. Oh, it doesn't like me today, does it? Oh, it comes in the middle. Okay. So improvement strategy. Obviously, this year's been complicated, and we spent an awful long time really having our main objective as replenishing the drivers that we have on the contract. But in terms of improvements, and Joe alluded to this earlier, we are working with JWS to improve our safety. We have worked with yourselves in terms of helping residents to understand what happens if you put incorrect materials in RCV. So we supply some photos of an RCV on fire to really demonstrate the impact of what could happen. We've improved our close call reporting and our management process between ourselves and JWS, and this really does highlight quality close calls and things that we can actually make a difference on. So it aids resolution and improves safety overall. In terms of route optimization, we hope to see a improvement to this with the introduction of white space, which I'll come to in a minute. This is the second part of our phase, if you like, because this is the environmental phase. So that is coming in the next few weeks. And we're also looking at round changes and amalgamating rounds to be as efficient as we can, taking into account the higher COVID tonnages that Kingsley alluded to earlier, as well as our commercial discussions. In terms of contract improvements, we are implementing digital tachographs as of next week, and this will aid us in the compliance of driver hours regulations, and will also reduce admin, which will mean more time on the ground, being able to review and audit the processes across the fleet, again, to aid safety. In terms of environmental, we are partnering with HVO Biofuel to trial across AMI to establish the cause and effect of 3 different biofuels and their true delivery of the reduction in CO2. So we know what it says on the tin, but actually what happens when you put it in our vehicles and you know, we go about our daily business. So we want to see the real true delivery of that. And then by the end of 2022, there'll be a plan to roll that out across all contracts, including Surrey. But we're just currently investigating suitable options through replacement of things like the tank at Woking. So when we've had a conversation about replacing that tank at Woking, we've also here at the moment just looking into quotes to think about, okay, is that tank going to be suitable for HVO if we swap over? And also, could we get a dual tank whereby we could have normal fuel and then swap over to the HV in the second tank? Just given that we could only change our bigger vehicles to HVO, not our smaller ones, without some kind of amendments. So really just thinking about how we become more sustainable with that fuel piece. In terms of IT, we've implemented white space, currently working through the timelines for phase 2 of the project, taking into consideration resource capacity to mitigate any further delays. In terms of the customer journey, we are reviewing our container ordering process all the way from the call centre, so that order point to the delivery point, to enable improved timescales and capture advance warning of any new developments and container requirements. As Joe mentioned earlier, we have these developments and the bin delivery seems to be the last thing that they open and ask us for in terms of a request. Not something solely to do with Surrey. I also saw that in my previous role in Milton Keynes as well. In terms of I'm not sure I understand. Oh, sorry, one of my phones wants to talk to me. I do apologise. In terms of community, Amy actually delivered hampers to the local food bank in Dorking in December, and these hampers were produced from a social value enterprise supplier and compliant of ethical resource products, and these were spread not only to food banks across the country but also to all Amy personnel as a thank you for 2022. And we will continue to expand our social engagement as we go through 2022, supporting some of the places such as the Wildlife Aid that we've supported previously. So just a little bit more on white space. We have successfully gone live in all sites on the new in-cab, so the TomToms, which they are now, on our waste collection. So that is our food, our recycling and our refuse. And we've had some very positive feedback from the crews as well as the management teams here, and so on and so forth. So we came in, we did sessions with everybody. We took drivers through some test sessions, and then we supported those around go live, and then we used the backup system to really just check their progress in using those new iPads, if you like. And we can check on that system who needs additional support, who needs retraining, and so on and so forth. So we're starting to see some really good live data now, being able to really start to use that hopefully in the future, which I'll go into in a little bit later. So it's a phased introduction. The next thing we're looking to send live is the white space resident portal. So this is being looked at in pieces, and we're developing it as we go. So as we are all happy, when I say we, that's Amy and JWS alike, as we're all happy with each form, with each process, be that Miss Bins, be it clinical, and so on and so forth, then we will make that piece go live. So that we've got that phasing coming in, but only when everybody is happy that the tool works in the way that we anticipate and in the best way for the customer. So we've worked very hard to try and reduce the number of forms that we were using to a much more concise number of forms, and try to amalgamate them. You know, if you've got a Miss Bin, you just need a Miss Bin form. You don't want to search through, 40, 50, 60, 70 forms, whatever that is, in order to find the right Miss Bin form for yourself, etc. So some real trying to just condense that process for our customer. The next will be the analytical reporting tool even, but we need the resident portal to go live in order to create those analytics. So this is how we'll be able to slice and dice this system to gain more information, to work out who's not putting out their food bin, which areas of the contract to target, to think about that recycling, and so on and so forth. So that piece, especially around the non-presented bins, will become much more usable in terms of informing the strategy for looking at those recycling percentages, etc. And then we got the notification tool. So this is the customer tool. This is being able to feedback, in terms of information around complaints they may have put in terms of their bins being ordered, and so on and so forth. So it's going well. It's gone well across the 4 sites, and as I said, positive feedback from everybody involved thus far. In terms of improvement strategies for next year, white space will continue to be developed. So strategic focus, as I said, around recycling and waste separations. We will look for round efficiencies, just having that wider scope around how quickly some rounds can be done compared to how heavy some other rounds are. So more information is available. And then that container management piece, looking at who's actually got what containers at their address, and how many are we actually emptying. If they've got 2 containers, that will now be put on, so that we're emptying 2 bins. Sorry, did you want me?
No, please.
Sorry, I thought it was somebody asking. Health and safety, we are raising awareness of incidents and potential consequences across the depot. So really getting people to think about that if they do X, Y could happen. So there's some thought processes about what happens to somebody when they've had an accident, and actually what happens in the background. If they break a leg, are they going to be able to attend the wedding they're meant to go to on Saturday? Are they actually going to be able to get upstairs? Can they actually go and watch their child play football on a Sunday? It has far bigger implications than the initial incident of that broken leg. So really getting people to think about the consequence and why they personally need to be safe, and the colleagues around them that they care about. We're looking at a reduction in vehicle and property damage across the piece. So again, highlighting the instances where this happens and how it could be avoided, and then building relationship rather than rules in terms of understanding the real root cause. So why has that happened? We had a little incident not so long ago, and when we looked into the background of it, there was a lot more to it happening in that person's life. And I think we all need to remember that at these times when life is quite complicated and there's a lot of additional stresses that we've seen over the last 2 years. And then from a social value point of view and sustainability, as we're looking to replace vehicles, sweepers, looking at infrastructure such as the Woking fuel tank, etc., we are looking at, is that sustainable for the future? What options are available to us now, and are they viable? And is that what we want to be doing moving forward? So those discussions are happening in the background. And then there's working collectively. We've learned a lot of lessons over the driver shortage. We work together now. We send crews across depots. and really thinking about how we take that into the future, those things that we've learned in this short space of time to work more sustainably. And that is myself. Any questions?
Thank you very much. I think the residents will be really appreciative of the notification element of white space, because actually knowing what's going on and being able to track something is a key point. So glad to see that that's progressing. Does anyone have any questions regarding that great report there? It's good to see all the sustainability stuff is well being thought of. It doesn't look like anyone's got anything to say, so I thank you for those presentations. In which case, we're almost at the end of the agenda, which is good news, as my bladder is telling me. We've just got the date of the next meeting. There is an election in the middle of that. The next meeting is the Thursday, the 30th of June at 11:30. If that's noted by everyone, and please stick it in your calendar. Which brings us to the end of this meeting, unless Democratic Services have anything I've forgotten about and I need to do. If not, then I'd like to thank everybody for their participation. Members, thank you for
Sorry, before we go, should we not actually find out exactly what is going to happen with the garden waste, because it seems that it's left in the air a bit. I'd like to have some sort of steer as to where Amy really think that we can get it back. We are still all working on April, but on the paper we're still looking at September. So I appreciate this is reliant upon having staff, but can we have a realistic view of what will happen next?
Okay, thank you very much. Martin.
Yeah, Councillor Salmon, I mean, the update that we've given, is in the backdrop of the recovery plan that through a number of weeks of discussion culminated in what was presented and said was possible based around the supplementary arrangements, etc. So that was based around restoring by September. It wasn't what we've been endeavouring to do is to with all these doubling of efforts to say how far in advance of that can we actually achieve things. 50% service back at the current time. What we're saying is we are moving as close to improve on the September. Can we guarantee and commit to the end of April? We cannot do that at this point because of those whole market issues that we're challenging with. We're neither ruling it out or in, but we're illustrating that we're working ahead of a plan, but how far ahead of it for those factors and the other considerations that we've put forward today is really the position we're in.
Thank you. I think the point I stressed earlier, which is we cannot go backwards. Mm-hmm. So when we make the next step forwards, or which we're about to do with the monthly or the 4 weekly collection, we cannot go back to a suspended service. And then obviously when we make it back to the fortnightly service, we simply could not go back to a monthly. And that to me has got to be the most important thing from a resident point of view. Residents have struggled or suffered enough with the service, and of course many the officers and the bin crews themselves and us councillors have had a very challenging time over the past 9 months or so with this, and so it is moving forwards, not moving backwards, and so we have to be absolutely sure that we make a step forward, we don't go backwards. That's the most understood, in my opinion. Lara.
Sorry, I think it's worth noting that we're already on a monthly service. So we've been running a monthly service now for the last week and a half, and that will continue moving forward. And I would absolutely agree with you. We don't want to put a service in that we then have to retract. So It is also worth noting that we said we would be at the monthly service by the end of April, and we're there already in the middle of February. So we are ahead of the game, but we don't know what the future holds, and we are pouring staff in, but with the attrition rate that we have, we're just not seeing that stick in terms of a number beyond what we've got at the moment. So the monthly service is there. And we absolutely want to restore the main service as quickly as possible. It's just that element of unknown when we're only getting really 25% of those people that we can bring in who actually remain with the service.
Okay, right. Thank you ever so much. Right. I am now going to move us to the date of the next meeting. It is 30th of June, rather. Sorry, my mistake. At 11:30. Hopefully most people will be back in terms of members. So it leaves me to thank members for their questions, thank Amy and JWS for your presentations and reports and answering our questions. And thank you to member services for looking after us so well, and members of the public for watching. Thank you very much.